As every other day since his first, Talc MM1109482 began his endless task of breaking and reducing rocks in the deep tunnels of the asteroid, moon or planet he had been assigned to. Being born for this very purpose, he was good at it, excelled. It was everything he had ever wished to accomplish. Clink, grah, clink, tick, 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 clink, clink, tick, 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 tick. He began maniacally drilling, piercing, hammering and reinforcing tunnels, spraying cements and mounting pillars every few hundred universal units, making sure to break and patch up anything his instincts didn't agree with. His awareness filled with sensory information from how the stone and earth reacted to his actions, intuitively reading into every minute change in his properties and memorizing every detail for the geological aspects of his duties. He felt stones and dust falling over his body relentlessly, projectiles from his tools and the ever-shifting ceiling. It made him happy. He moved the earth for his cast, and in turn his cast moved him ever deeper within the tunnels. Warning: blast in T20 proximity. 3,981 units. Talc saw in his mind's eye the images of a tunnel being prepared and evacuated. He did the same, and started walking to a secured area linked with multiple escapes and better supports. He had prepared the safe zone for this exact purpose. He was always ready. Warning: blast in T-3. 2. He felt the passageway echo as a sparking cloud dust saturated the air inside the enclosed space. He was delighted. A new tunnel for him to work in had just been created. Then suddenly, white sparks erupted in the air. Oh, he thought. It's magnesium dust in oxygen. No! Bracing himself instinctively, the pile drivers on his legs and arms shot large metal rods to secure him in place, as resin started to spray from every nozzle in a panic. He felt the pressure for a moment longer before collapsing, taken by a white flash of blinding light and then darkness. Warning: MM1109482 from Sector D038 Unit MP0112. Magnesium flash flare and cave-in detected. Enclosed atmosphere. Connection to unit compromised. He started to feel his new form take shape into his senses, the strangeness of it making him doubt he was a miner. He looked around and his eyes fell on his supervisor, holding what looked like a work assignment transfer device. Excavator unit, but I am a miner, Talc said in protest. MM1109482, you are to evacuate your previous unit before resuming reinforcing Sector D038, his supervisor retorted. He had been tasked to do something he was not born to do. This was punishment for being complacent and managing to trap his mining unit under a tunnel he was supposed to reinforce. He had failed for the first time. Every nerve ached. This thing wasn't meant for him to operate. It felt as though he had been stripped of his appendages. His muscle memory did not work here. It only served to anger him as he spent the rest of his shift awkwardly resisting his trained instincts to move limbs he didn't have anymore. After what seemed like at least 3 shifts worth of time, his HUD outlined something in yellow onto the rock he had picked up. He started to clear out the rocks around his former shell, slowly, not to move any more of the tunnels, revealing the drone he would do anything to operate again. It was roughly 8 units tall with an array of tools attached to its back, each one broken. The 2 arms ending in hooks for precise manipulation, and grabbing with undermounted hydraulic hammers being the main focus of the design. The cement sprayers had created a shell of hardened resin. It looked like a preserved insect from another age. Exhausted from his punishment, he brought it back to the maintenance area on the surface, up the unending shaft of the exits, after taking one of the many supply elevators' cages. Not long after entering maintenance, a few curious drones had scanned his unit. Then, after they were satisfied, it was hosed down with a solution to dissolve the resin. Maintenance was needed, and he dreaded what was to come. MPO-112 is severely damaged. We will need your inputs to know the details. It says here you were caught in a magnesium flash fire. It's impressive that there is anything left to repair. I anchored myself before the tunnels collapsed. The hoses exploded from the pressure. I was lucky they held this long, but thanks. It was good to hear that he had saved his unit. Maybe that was why his supervisor had not relocated him to another site. From what I can see, the tools need to be replaced. The sensors could be damaged and both legs are gone. Connect to the unit and send a sensory report. This is going to be painful, so prepare yourself. Take your time and tell me what's wrong with it. He contacted his supervisor, who was now reconnecting him to his unit. He docked his accursed excavator body that was damaged due to lack of experience, and set it down into maintenance in a different bay and waited, suddenly dreading the experience about to come. When the unit you were operating broke, it hurt. He had felt it on a lesser degree with smaller rocks falling onto him and pinning him to the ground, or his tools malfunctioning and breaking down. This was going to be a nightmare. The legs were going to be removed. He could not even imagine how painful that must be. Initializing connection. Error. Grid status corrupted. 73,846,012 entities, consciousnesses lost. 64,284,292 entities, bodies in shock. 43,372,939 entity vitals lost. Automated directive 1. Save remaining drone entities at all costs. Automated directive 2. Fragment and inject lost entities, crucial memories to Hive. Automated directive 3. Reroute all available resources to maintain function. Ejecting grid. I have been here before, but this is not MP-0112. He recognized this feeling. A body here long forgotten, soft and warm unlike the cold units he had used his entire waking life. Images flashed in his mind as his awareness fired like a turbine winding up. It felt like the world was ending. Explosions, pain, every part of his body breaking millions of times in a single moment. He saw crafts flying with deafening roars, dropping bombs out of the sky for what seemed hundreds of times, and an equal amount of metal boxes crawling on the ground, ripping him apart as they pointed at him with the top part of their hulls. Each and every time he was a different unit model. Some he recognized, but most were unknown to him. None were prepared for what was happening to them, and he lived their experiences in the fastness of the surface of the worlds he could only have seen in dreams. He could not comprehend what was happening. Everything seemed so alien, mixed in the savage forces of the experiences being fed into him, like a hot iron searing his brain, with memories that were not his own. This couldn't be happening, yet he had lived it for the eyes of millions. Somewhere buried in the chaos and madness of this destruction, he caught glimpses of beings he had never seen before. They walked on two legs and in large groups as they screamed while using tools that damaged his body, dismembering him where he stood from a distance, again and again. Prudently it vanished, slowing down and landing on a metaphysical representation of the great interconnected network processing unit. As he cried and screamed in confusion, he realized it was frozen in time, disabled. The grid was down. He was cut off from the Hive Queen. In a brutal awareness shift, he opened his eyes. He felt the connective links ripped out from his nerves and his sensitive organs. He panicked, trying to grasp anything to bring him back to the safety of his duties. The liquid drained in a wave, ejecting him to the ground and washing him off the platform where his body was housed and maintained, like a server for his mind. The light and sound blurred and echoed as though they were but a distant fever dream, slowly growing tangible and clearer each instant that passed. It began to make out a sound of alarms and what seemed like people panicking and crying. It sounded like mayhem. Soon he began to see and feel his surroundings, after he had realized he was screaming just like the rest of them, unable to stop himself. Someone had resuscitated him and pulled him closely. He let it happen, and he cried like an infant newborn. He was taken by a wave of drones trying to take a look over the edge of the massive tower of the grid, where thousands of others could be seen doing the same from other locations. Some of them throwing themselves off the edge as they could not live with this sudden change of perspective. Questions started to flood his mind as he tried to make sense of it all, but suddenly a voice boomed in his mind as he flinched. MM11094882, remain calm. Do not despair, you are safe. I am your Hive Queen. We will soon begin work. After the awe had passed and the group had taken the initiative to end their small moment of much needed adjustment, granted them by the Queen, he too began to wonder what he could do to help. We will now begin work. Your task is to offer help in any way you can to unresponsive Hive members found near you until teams are organized to form a cohesive workflow. Yes, Queen, I will save them, he responded meaninglessly to the one-way message. I will guide you through the steps soon. Your actions will save millions. Move now. He spotted a Hiver convulsing. He quickly made his way to them and knelt down. It didn't find it in him to improvise something he was sure would help them. Hive Queen, what can I do to help them? I don't know what to do. The patient kept flailing, hitting Tulk, throwing his limbs aimlessly as he twisted his body on the ground. Some will have permanent neurological damage or require resources not available, and will need to be terminated. There must be something I can do to help. Anything I can do to make them stop. Locate the strands of filaments protruding from his... Good. Pull on the middle one sharply and remove it from their body. He yanked the fibrous tubes out of their abdomen, dragging and destroying many organs attached to the membrane hiding behind. He looked at the mess he had just made of the person he was trying to save and started to cry. Why? He turned away as fluid sprayed from the disemboweled form, losing the last of its energy, giving place to permanent inertia. Do not despair, MM11094882. This is a harsh time for the Hive, and your actions will strongly impact the future of the colony. Be strong. You did good. Continue to the next person nearest to you. Someone was looking from behind Tug with shock and disapproval. As Tug turned to look away, they locked eyes in confusion. A hint of understanding passed between them, as they both were lost for words. All I could. I didn't... Tug tried to justify as he recognized the flinching that happened when the Hive Queen communicated through their minds. Their eyes became soft, showing a sorry expression, while Tug took the hint and moved to the next victim of his mercy. After a few more rescues, his distress grew as incomprehensible emotions filled his being, like a chaotic force. He kept performing the procedure his queen had taught him 20, 60, 100 times he didn't know anymore. He kept moving from person to person, killing them with ever-growing regret and disgust piling inside of him. He took a moment to steady himself after a particularly distressing performance. He had failed to terminate a person with dignity. Their eyes showed fear and begged for his help. Tug hesitated, feigning to end it in one swift motion. The patient changed their tone to a plea for mercy and death as the butchered half-finished mess of organs pulsated in his manipulating appendages. He ripped it out, screaming in a horrid panic, regurgitating his digestive fluids and spraying everywhere, onto and into the corpse. Dignity had escaped his body. Something had snapped in him. Their eyes. He would never be able to forget the way they looked back at him. He had vomited onto their remains, an insult beyond death. Despair overtook him. Words could not describe Tal's regret. The only thing that matched the depth of it were his cries. After a few moments it subsided. He still felt terrible, but he had run out of tears, and his abdomen ran out of strength to produce the sounds of his wailing for the time being. He regained a semblance of composure and carried on. He located someone that was stuck on the tubes from the platform, unable to break free from the tangled wires. Reaching to grab them, he realized how tall he actually was compared to the others. Taking care to free the trapped nymph, the size and colour of which were pale in comparison to his own, he took a moment of his time to reassure them and himself with the comfort of the child. The immediate safety of the warmth bubble emanating from the infant nymph helped soothe the trauma he had endured. Do not worry, little nymph, I can help. There. I will hold you for a moment. No, don't look. He nestled the nymph's head under his neck, hiding the scene from his fragile mind, who seemingly took it quite well. Having not yet experienced life as an operator for more than what was probably just sensory training to shape it into a competent worker. It's a hard time for us all, but we are making it better as we speak. The Queen said this to me personally. All will be normal again with time, I am sure. Our Queen never fails us. Then, what he assumed was a drone of the caretaker caste carried the small child to safety. He was sure they would be fine. Feeling a bit better, he began to wonder. He was at least a third taller than the average drone, with a more prominent exoskeleton and larger limbs. They seemed impractical compared to the norm. As he curiously wondered why that is, he heard, Yes, you are genetically different from the average drone. This is perfectly normal. It is a trait of your caste. Answers will come. Please use this tool to increase your efficacy. He noticed flares of colour forming in his vision, outlining the shapes of every drone currently on the ground, with the degrees of hue ranging from green, yellow and red, with a lot of blue in between. This will help you prioritise your efforts. Blue means they are currently being treated. The survival chance is displayed from green, meaning high, to red, meaning null. Thank you, Queen. I can help those who... He was cut off. No, Tug. Your task is to help terminate those that are in pain who cannot be saved. I understand this is new. Learn from this experience, and never forget what happened here today. Tug stood there for a moment, his mind racing away from his control, as his eyes lost focus of the scene in front of him. A drone formed like him, grabbed him and shook him slightly. He snapped out of it and took a good look at them, noticing there were 5 of them, bulky and tall, standing in a semicircle looking at him with readiness displayed in their eyes, as if they were waiting for him. Making peace with his task, he processed the new information. Thinking through it in a flash, he realized, we are stronger, more resilient. We take the heaviest weight off the colony's back. We need to do what they can't. This is correct. You bear the hardest tasks, the heaviest weights, but you will never have to do it alone. These are the drones assigned to you permanently. Guide them through the steps of the procedure, and assign a red priority target to each one as you continue. Something changed in him, as if an old process was slowly regaining momentum from thousands of lifetimes of obsoleteness. He could feel a new emotion whirling inside of him, fueling his circulatory system, as though he had received a heavy dose of stimulants. This new sense of purpose building up inside of him lifted his form tall as he stood ready for anything. What is this feeling moving me? It felt like anger, sadness and pride merged as one, and he could not find a word for it. Wrath is the term for this emotion. It is a tool only your caste can produce. Use it well and learn to control it. The colony needs this power from a time when every day was a crisis, like the one we are living now. Flashes of the memories imprinted into his mind, moments before, surfaced. He would have to wait. This violence would have to be tamed for now. His task left no place for it at the moment. Still, he felt drawn to it like something he could not ignore permanently. He could see his team grow one member at a time, his caste finding their way in a circle around him. Listening in, seemingly attuned to his every whim as the chemical balance of their nervous system seemed to synchronize to match his own. He felt the energy radiating from each other and washing over him like the unseen tide of strength. Queen, we are not just miners. What is the true name of our caste? I found a way to repurpose your needs, tamed your nature for the harshness of a task no one else could dare complete, but I never erased it. Hive Queen? She echoed into his mind, rewriting something. No, releasing it. Preservers. Those who sacrifice themselves for the colony. Surprising even him, his voice boomed as the pressure reached its peak. Preserver caste? The Hive needs us to terminate their suffering and anguish. We're the only ones capable of completing this task. I ask of you to be strong, and to perform this procedure quickly and without fail, for our people will suffer deeply if you do not succeed in your first attempt. He let his last words linger in the air, with a heavy sense of dread taking him. The regret and darkness crept back under his exoskeleton. He knew they also felt it. They would not need to repeat his mistakes. He found the words his queen had given them, finding safety in their purpose. We are those who sacrifice our hearts and lives for the colony. He saw everyone around him, stare into him and through him as they focused within themselves, finding the hidden nature of those who preserve. A thunder of sentience overtook each of them. The slumber of their deepest selves ended abruptly from his words. He could feel it. He moved through his caste as they made way from him like a conscious liquid, deforming around a solid object. Reaching a red target, a Hive adrenaline on the ground, whirling in pain. Their abdomen had seemingly started to eject his organs from them in what could only be relentless muscle spasms. Without hesitation, he ripped out the strand of connecting tissue in a sharp and decisive motion, ending the cramps and life of the poor person as emptiness took their rise. This simple action will terminate the targets that will be assigned to you starting immediately. Follow my lead and take only those who I signal precisely from this gesture. The heavy price of your hearts is what the colony needs to regain its dignity. Unnecessary suffering will not be tolerated under our care. He waved his arm while extending the hooked end of his manipulating appendage to point at various individuals highlighted in red from his vision. His caste moved methodically, making sure their work did not disrupt that of other castes, performing elaborate procedures. He did not fail to notice the other caste spent precious resources and a lot of attention. They were thinly distributed between the wounded. They could not help everyone equally. The Queen had prioritized the drones that could survive intact. It was cruel and efficient.